Hello, welcome one and all. You are listening to the Slay Radio station. I am Gazoo. You are joining me on PMPVsFanInfringement. It's the Sunday night show that's been on somewhat of a hiatus for the past 2 weeks. Hopefully this won't be a regular thing, but I will warn you there may be some show irregularity. This is the part where I wish I could also say, but don't fret, I've been working tirelessly behind the scenes to do one thing or another in regards to PlanMixPlay and making the show awesomer and cooler, but the fact is that would be a lie if I said that, because I've just been flat out busy with a number of other things, works, personals, lots of other stuff going on. So unfortunately, there's been not a lot of progress. There has been some, and I will probably rant and rave a bit about it later in the show. But for now, I'd rather, be a straight shooter and say, hey, this is where it's at. But at least there's a show now and for the next 2 hours. So thanks for tuning in. Glad you're here. And speaking of people who've tuned in, I saw quite a few people in the chat. And as usual, you can join us on Slay Radio on EFNet, on IRC. And if all of that sounds like gobbledygook to you, then first of all, welcome to Slay Radio. This is the internet you are now on. And if you need a bit of help, I would suggest Googling some of these terms. In any case, getting back to people who are in the chat, I saw a bit of Commodore Old Fart. Shargo Immortal joins us. DMTM was in and then out again, maybe still around, not sure. LP Chip is here, and Spavach, who says, phew, made it. And we're glad you made it. We're all very glad you're here, Spavach. So I am discombobulated as usual. You can hear me kind of frantically clicking a little bit in the background because the microphone is a little too good. It doesn't know what's good for it, if you ask me. But hey, those are the breaks. So I'm just trying to get a bit of a lowdown on what people are requesting. I can already see there have been a few things put up on the board. Recall that I've, since I started broadcasting on YouTube, of course, I've been running into a few issues, and I want to reiterate that although some of you may be thinking, hey, this visualization bit that you got going on there is just, and there goes the bed, by the way, is very lame and very basic, and why even bother with the restrictions that YouTube puts on you to have this stuff showing. And I would tend to agree with you to a degree, that it is not the most interesting thing, but man, I'm really hoping that no more than 1 or 2 shows have to pass before I can start doing something more interesting. I sent a small link through the chat with people in there, so if anyone's curious to see what might be on the ropes, I'm guessing that they can, see some stuff. And yeah, LP Chip mirrors the exact sentiment that I've just pulled out, which is, hey, if there's nothing more interesting there to watch, then I'm not going to watch, which is fair enough. I'll make sure to keep you posted when there's something more interesting to see, which there will be eventually. But for now, it's a bit of a test bed, and that's the main reason. So when people wonder why even bother with this, well, look, it's to test the system. Like, I want to get into the habit of making all of this run smoothly, and the only way to do that is to actually use this feature, like it or lump it. Now, I'm going to dip into something that we all enjoy, which is a bit of Slaygon. It sounds oddly sexual in a way, but it's totally not. Me and Slaygon are we're very good friends, and if anyone says otherwise, well, you need some sort of court document before I'd say any more in that direction. But in the meantime, while I try and dig myself out of this metaphorical hole that I've put myself in, I think the only right thing to do is to apply a bit of Slaygon where it hurts. It's a smooth, creamy sleigh gun, of course, we're talking about here. The kind that you rub on any sort of particular area that might be a little bit, rough or sensitive or red or, something that needs a bit of calming, lubing action. Yes, this has gone oddly sexual. Anyway, first request of the evening is LP Chip, who said, "Hey Gazoo, can you play us a sleigh gun with Platoon?" I'm more than happy to do it. This is the Inexperti Belly version. Isn't that lovely? With a little bit of silence added at the end. I was not at all caught off guard by that ending there. So the honest truth is I was watching it ending, and for some reason I still decided, hey, I should twiddle with these other things and fiddle with a few other bits before I decide to turn the microphone back on. So apologies for that. And because it's a little bit topical and because it matters to me, in the chat I am engaging a bit with LP Chip, who of course mentions and well, he basically, as I said before, highlights the exact same thing that I said, which is, hey, if you don't think the visuals for the show are very worthwhile watching while listening, I get that, because they are, they are hella simplistic. They are simple. And he mentioned something about, looking at the desktop and seeing how PMP is used, and absolutely, that's a thought, and I think it's a really good one myself. But what was it? There was something else. Yeah, I'm a bit confused because LP Chip writes something about, especially most of the time, it will not show the exact same thing. My guess is that maybe you meant to, either you're referring to something else or you mean to say that the visual output is almost the exact same thing all the time, which I would argue it is. It doesn't, again, visually, it's not super appealing for now. And why don't we close that chapter on talking a little bit about, I'm trying to introduce a few new features, and now that I've got the program kind of somewhat grounded on the audio and visual side of it, and I want to juggle multiple elements, you need to introduce a sort of order to things. So let's say if I were to have two things that were to produce something visually, I needed to somehow communicate to the program, well, what has priority? What is more important? What do you show first? And if you have two things to show, which of the two must take priority over the other? And that is one of those things that I kind of sat and messed with today, because this is the first time I've had more than one visual going. That is to say, the C64 visuals you see now is kind of its own separate thing, and I want to introduce another thing on top of that, and then you need some sort of order, because otherwise, there just isn't any structure. But that will come. Now I get it. LB Chip basically just mentions, hey, there isn't a lot of change unless a new song comes on, which is absolutely true. It was, to me, sort of the bare minimum to at least get something up and running. And yes, it isn't very interesting, and it hasn't changed in a while. But hey, development like this takes time. I wish it went faster, but there's not much I can do about that except work as hard as I can and take it from there. Anyway, I have a bit of stuff to talk about in terms of fan games and infringement thereof. But until then, I think we should take another request. And Spavac, who joined us at the very last second, wrote to say, "Oh, hi, Gazoo. I'd like to ask for something by Lukash, DJ's Choice, please, Kithix." And I've selected the Alien live YouTube vid, just because, yeah. Oh, hi, conductor.
As we play Alien. Alien.
And there you have it, Lukash. I don't know, why did I turn the microphone on and then clear my throat? Probably a better order would be clear throat, then turn microphone on, and then talk. You can't have it all. Free show and all that. The first request of the evening was Slagon with Platoon by LP Chip. He wanted some of that creamy, yummy Slagon. And second request was by Spavach, who wanted a bit of Lukash and DJ's choice on the remix in question, to which I chose Alien. So thank you both LB Chip and Spavach for requesting that. First request I've played in about 2 weeks, so goody on that. Moving right along, I have a short script, and it's very short, so let's just bang it out, because we're already about 1/8 through the show. Fan games. So I'm talking about games where people play video games of some sort, or I suppose just get interested in some sort of intellectual property, and they developed let's just say, slight interest in it. Anything ranging between I'll buy the next of these, to full on I will collect dolls, toys, cards, whatever. Star Wars is probably one of the best examples of this. Anyway, but one of the more interesting things to me is when someone embarks on making some sort of fan-based game, especially when it's it feeds off an intellectual property that itself is born out of a game. The one especially I'm referring to in recent times here is someone who apparently spent 3 years, and I'm guessing this is an on and off 3 years kind of time spending here, on porting Red Dead Redemption, the map of that game, to the new GTA 5 engine. And, I'll cut to the chase and reveal the big twist at the end. Guess what? They were sent a cease and desist letter and were told, we're having none of that, said Rockstar Games, and promptly shut them down. Another good example was in 2011, apparently 8 years of effort were put into making a Streets of Rage remake, which then also got the kibosh. And what's going on precisely, as far as I know, and this is my poorly researched topic of the day, is trademark/copyright infringement, both of them. And you might ask, well, why are these companies shutting down these most devoted fans? Like, what do they possibly gain other than negative press and lack of goodwill? And you're right. At first glance, it seems like it's completely counterproductive. Like, I would even say if someone made any sort of, spin-off of PlanMixPlay, as long as it didn't, I would say, use any of my existing work, because that would probably be ill-gotten, it would be super cool. Like, that would be an awesome thing, because I just want any sort of involvement. I would be, all for that. But this isn't the same thing, of course, because look, my brand is tiny, and audience is even smaller. Well, no, that's true. Not true. The brand is actually smaller than the audience, I would say. Anyway, but the real kicker here, and this is what most people don't realize, especially not people who kick up a shitstorm on forums, is that these companies stand to lose the trademarks and copyrights if they don't protect them. Not protecting them actively basically erodes them. And there's an article about this that I may post or spam a bit in the chat, because it talks a bit about this, and some of the quotes I have is from this. And one of the quotes in the case of the Streets of Rage remake, and this is from Sega, I believe, where it quotes, "We need to protect our intellectual property rights, and this may result in us requesting that our fans remove online imagery, video games, or games, in some instances," a spokesperson for Sega told wire.co.uk. And but there's also, there's the flip side example. Take for example, what's called Black Mesa source, where Valve, which is the Washington-based creator of Half-Life and Portal, basically embraced a almost eternally delayed Half-Life 1 remake. In 2007, the firm basically said, we're as eager to play it as everyone else. And here, that's kind of the key here. By acknowledging its existence and publicly, and again, I'm quoting verbatim here, so these are not exactly my own words, it's coming from this article. By acknowledging its existence and publicly endorsing it, Valve could argue that it made it an implied license. By taking steps to acknowledge the specific fan game and publicize this, Valve has made this endorsement specific to one game rather than a general blanket ignoring of all infringements. So the bottom line here, and I would say the general public shouldn't necessarily know this, but anyone who embarks on putting many years of effort into something really should go to the trouble of asking whoever is the original intellectual property holder, or risk losing everything even after years and years of work, because there are many cases where asking for forgiveness rather than permission can help you out. This is not one of those cases. This is where not asking for permission up front almost 99% of the time will only risk you basically, because the thing is, it's a double-sided blade and both of them will cut you. Because if you choose to say, I'm not going to ask, I'm going to, ask for an apology, or I'm going to give an apology later, then if, let's say, you were to make something very popular, such as a new Pokemon game, and you were to release it, and you had not asked for permission, and Nintendo is needed to pull a cease and desist on you, the most likely outcome is that you'll just pull the game, and now it's in the wild, and that's it. But I would say there is a chance that if Nintendo or whatever company is particularly unhappy with this outcome, that the game is now out in the wild and not easy to rid of, you would be held responsible for that, because it's just because things aren't easy to erase from the internet, that doesn't mean that you can't bear the consequences of your actions. So I would imagine if it was a significant enough impact on the brand as such in terms of the game, the court would side with the company and basically say, well, it doesn't matter if you are no longer hosting this product that you made, you never had the rights to make it, you never had the rights to release it, and just because it is now being perpetuated by everyone else online, well, tough shit. That's your problem, not Nintendo's or whoever else's. Anyway, I talked too long and my listeners disappear. Let's take another tune. This is CZ Tunes' No Mercy Endgame Remix. And there you have it with CZ Tunes No Mercy Endgame Remix. And I really, really, really like that version. I think I've mentioned before, so that's really nothing new, all things considered. That's weird. Now says that I'm playing the song again, which is a little weird because it already put it on. Not sure why it's updating that twice, but hey. Just wrapping up on that game infringement thingy-majig. So it's quite simple, really. Companies need to act to protect their intellectual property. That being said, they can, if they want to, endorse individual products. Like, there is nothing wrong with a company going out and saying, hey, this one particular product, we tip our hat to, or we nod to, and we sanction that. But then there's the other risk. The thing is, it becomes somewhat of an official product, sort of. If I had to guess, I would say these big companies aren't worried that they'll get, like, one could argue, well, if they nod at the game somehow, some people will suddenly think that some people will suddenly think, hey, now this company is responsible if something goes wrong, or they'll sue them for damages or something. And, you'd call me crazy, but I'll give you an example. Curl is a library that's basically used to communicate over the internet with. It's a very well, I don't know if I should say very basic, but it's a fairly rigorously tested library and used incredibly widely and also free, which is why it's so widely used. In fact, it's used so widely that some car producers even use curl as part of whatever onboard code base that they have and have written for the car. And if you Google, you can find that the guy who's written it has received like emails from, you wouldn't believe the types of sources from where people have just emailed him, because his email is one of the few emails, if any, that show up in the About section of any electronic product. So people who have a problem with their car will somehow navigate through a lot of menus, eventually arriving at a few places where it says who made the car and who's responsible for it, and then they'll find his email address as one of the only ones, and just assume that because his email address is in this area, he has some sort of affiliation, and people will then. I'm not shitting you. Like, people will write to him about car engine problems because he wrote a library about how to communicate using various protocols over the internet, which is goddamn downright ridiculous. Like, come on. So if you Google that, there are some really good stories out there he has. But anyway, I'm trying to highlight that that's not why I think these big companies don't want to have the affiliation. They're worried of diluting the brand. Like, they would have to sit down and spend time and money to basically verify that whatever fan game you've made isn't offensive somewhere, or doesn't have some sort of imagery somewhere that isn't adequate or what they want. And the risks are small, I would say, but they're there. Like, look, even Grand Theft Auto San Andreas had sex games hidden in them. And these were planned all along to some degree, but it wasn't until someone found out a very easy way of unlocking them that it became a huge, monumental scandal. Like, if they had done due diligence and removed them, rather than just kind of flip a switch from yes to no, then that shitstorm that cost them several millions of dollars wouldn't have happened. And with these fan games, like I said, people could, make a Sonic the Hedgehog fan game, and then somewhere buried deep in it is an Easter egg of Sonic giving a blowjob to Mario or something or Mario. And it's not likely, but it's possible. There's little oversight. And I think this is the main reason why a lot of companies just cannot take it on faith that people will treat their brand well, even though the people who made these fan games don't stand to gain much by tarnishing the image, but they don't stand to lose much either. Because if there's no money exchanging hands, you can't really give a nod or allow the license to the product and then change your mind necessarily when the bad stuff erupts. Like, by then the damage is done. So this is the main reason why you see companies rather act decisively and clamp down on it, rather than look the other way, because that would erode the trademark and copyright they have. And they also won't just grant this, single okay for it either, because they're afraid of what might be in the game or that it won't fit the brand that they're trying to build. So yeah, and that kind of leaves the company with no options left than to look like a, heartless, mean bastard company that just wants to crush everyone's dreams. So yeah. And LP Chip mentions that Duke 3D has an Easter egg about Doom and Commander Keen. Yes, he does. One of both of them. And he says something like, that's one doomed space marine, or some bullshit like that. Man, Duke used to be cool. And I think I have a few words to say about that. But before that, let's take another request. This time, if I can find the window here, coming in from Cracks Ultima, who writes and says, hey, Gazoo, over at that warm and cozy Aussie land. Heh, I agree. How about some Stefan Poisse Light Force Minor Box remix? He just woke up. Well, here you go. And there you have it. It is some Stefan Pois Light Force Mind in a Box remix, requested by Crax Ultima. So thank you very much, Crax Ultima, for requesting that. I'm wondering if the update works. Yeah, I'm curious as to why there was an update sent twice. I did have a little bit of an issue with connecting to Slay Radio for a while there, so I don't know if that's a persistent one. But yeah, and a few people are making light of how now that Sonic and Mario are in video games together, the world is kind of broken. And look, it's totally weird seeing that. Yes, and I mean it's. I think the most telling part. Oh man, not again. The most telling part here, in my mind, in regards to Sonic and Mario. And their video games is try to go back and play previous Sonic games and then try to go back and play previous Mario games. And I'd say for all but the most biased of people, yeah, there is some such subjectivity involved, but you'll be hard-pressed to find someone who still feels that Sonic holds up better than Mario games. I'm sorry, but they're, to me at least, and I'd say the vast majority of critics, there just isn't enough depth. Like, back in the day, the novelty of Sonic, moving fast, speeding through, the varying levels, the graphics, all of that meant that Sonic had a certain edge that Mario just did not. But when it comes down to gameplay mechanics, the world building, the various ways you can interact with things, Sonic is just so much more of a basic game. You run left, right, you jump on things, you get a few upgrades, and the level in and of itself is one that you kind of speed through. And maybe it's because in some ways Sonic's greatest mechanic in some ways is also its biggest downfall. Like, Sonic is all about going fast. When you go fast in Sonic and you don't know the map well enough, then you hit something, and that kind of breaks your entire stride and momentum, and just kind of makes Sonic shit all the rings out of his ass, and suddenly you're back to square one. And because of the limited viewpoint, it just didn't work out. And it's interesting because the three-dimensionalized version of Sonic hasn't fared much better. Like, yeah, it's better in terms of you can kind of see where you're going, but it hasn't solved some of the fundamental problems, I would argue, that Sonic has. So I would say, from a game historian standpoint, I suppose, Mario totally deserved to win out. Like, Sonic should be the guest at Mario's Olympic, not the other way around. Despite the ironic fact that you'd guess that Sonic is probably a lot better at most of the Olympic Games than Mario is, because fuck it, it's a Super Sonic Hedgehog versus an Italian plumber. Like, who do you think is gonna win between the two in general? But yeah, so. And also, I mean, I've read there is a really good account on what Sega did to burn all their bridges and really shit the bed. And I've read that account, I think, upwards of 8 times. It was on a website called Eidolon's Inn. Maybe I should dig it out and post a link. If anyone cares, let me know in the chat. But I believe it's been turned into a book now, because it was such a in-depth analysis of the entire, like, the rise to glory and fall from fame for Sega, and it's such an interesting read, at least I think so. Anyway, let's play a bit more music. Immortal, you wanted a bit of LP Chip with Traz, and who am I to say no to that when LP Chip joins us in the chat? So take it away, LP Chip. and a slow fade towards the end there with LP Chip, Traz, the Chill Down remix requested by Immortal. And for once, I'm actually pretty happy that no one, and that is to say not a soul, is looking at the YouTube stream, because there was just a minor accident on there. The visuals are somewhat back now, which is good. In fact, I'm a little surprised to see them working the way that they are. Oh yeah, that's right. That's because, well, see, again, if I should have probably risked this, but the visuals in the current version of PlanMixPlay I'm using are all tied into the same unit in a way. Anyway, it's basically a way of saying if I have one object that's simulating the C64, which is what is visualizing everything. If I put another one in, it will produce the exact same output. In fact, there won't be the slightest bit of difference between the two. That's something I intend to change. But in this one instance, it actually happened to save my butt, except for the fact that I still kind of had a lot of dead streaming going on. It was black. So I apologize for anyone catching the show on the rerun for just a bit of blackness, but that should be over. Anyway, let's take another request, and this one's super short. Roland's Rat Race, track 2 from Anders Hesselbom. I'm wondering if it's because PlanMixPlay has just messed up this file. That does happen, but let's give it a listen. Requested by Casrain. And yeah, take it away, Anders Hesselbom. Everything was totally fine. It was just a jaunty, little lovely tune, and with that, I'm not surprised to see that the viewer, I can say, and this is without any, there's not no word of a lie, straight up misses whatever the frick boss usually says, that my viewership has multiplied infinitely. Basically, because it just went from 0 to 1, because of course someone who's listening in was curious enough to see, hey, is there anything different? Is the blackness still there? Can I catch the mistake? And to that I say, first of all, no, it has been fixed, and well, I'm sorry for that, because I bet that might be a bit more interesting, but even more than that, it means that since my viewership went from 0 to 1, it is now infinitely higher than it used to be, so awesome possum to that. Yes, moving right along, because we're now almost in the second half of the show, and I had another request coming in as I was playing this request, namely from Goose75, who I don't really recognize, who says, "Hi Gazoo, can you play this is an XX Dusty Amiga remix?" And you know, I'm always down for the Amiga remix in general. Like, I love the C64, and I mentioned this before on the show that I like the C64 a lot, but if I have to be completely fair, the Amiga was a little bit more my kind of main thing throughout my young adult, adolescent life. Like, that thing arrived when I was 6 or 7 or something, and we kept with the Amiga for almost a decade. So that was, in many ways, the more formative machine for me. I'm definitely the very last in a generation of Commodorians who went on the C64. And yeah, Immortal says, almost a YouTube VIP indeed. If it is you, Immortal, then you certainly are. Well, now there are 2 viewers, so, well, you're both very VIP. Anyway, in the meantime, let's take it away with XX Dusty XX, Supercars 2, the intro remix, 2007, wanted by Goose75. It's interesting listening to this version of Supercars 2 because I actually think the original one is fucking goddamn awesome. Like I'm not, this is a good one too, but just the original with that I don't know. There's just I should really look up who orchestrated that because that is one goddamn slamming mod song from the Amiga days. On that game, I remember liking. I don't know why. I remember Supercars 2 was it was a very straightforward, simple game. You drove cars around the track. You bought upgrades. You tried to finish first, and then I recall one of the things I found was most interesting / fun was the fact that was the fact that you could interact. Like there were short segments of interaction in between races that would either dock you some or give you a bonus. Like something like, hey, you're being interviewed by this person about the race. What did you think? And the responses like varied from somewhat measured to completely ludicrous. And if I recall correctly, it seemed to be fairly random as to what would be the right reply, because I certainly recall picking some of the most outlandish ones. Something saying like, oh, I don't know, I think the other drivers were all space aliens and this is just all a simulation and I'm actually not real. Bullshit like that. Or even breaking the fourth wall stuff of like, hey, why should I talk to you, reporter lady? You're just in a video game. You're not real. And then you could actually be rewarded for that inane choice. Like, I believe a reply from one of the persons you interacted with would say something like, you know what, never have I met a more ballsy approach to blah, blah, blah. Here's some extra cash for the next race. Like, I kind of wish that I knew a little bit about the code behind that. I don't know why. I find old code like that is super, super interesting to me. Someone even decoded a bunch of the AI behind Street Fighter 2, which is basically a series of scripts that just execute. It basically reads the state of play, what's going on, where's the player, what are they doing, and then basically chooses a pre-written script at random. And of course, a few things are determined based on the difficulty setting, such as how good is the computer at countering your moves and shit like that. And I recall the person, it's a blog, if you Google SF Platinum, or SF2 Platinum, you find the person who's written about this. And one of the most interesting things I find was that after the person blogged a bit about the artificial intelligence, apparently a lot of people were like, yeah, that's not real artificial, you don't call that artificial intelligence, meh. And the next blog post was something like, there's been a lot of talk about this not being AI and blah, blah, blah. And here's my well thought out and eloquent rebuttal to those statements. Who cares? And even though I find, that's a little glib, little too snarky for my tastes, because you're more likely to piss people off with that, I see where he's coming from. Like, honestly, who gives a shit? Like, it does not really matter. Like, all that matters is that these scripts do purport to simulate an AI playing, a character for you, an opponent, as it were, or an opponent. I don't know, opponent. I think opponent is okay, but certainly opponent is fine. Anyway, so who gives a shit if it's some pre-scripted stuff? Like, the whole point is to just try and fool the player and engage with the player on a more meaningful level. And I remember one thing in particular that also was curious to me, and I remember thinking about that when playing the game as a young little boy, which is the AI could seemingly just execute some of the super moves without any sort of delay. And what I mean by that is, if you're playing the arcade game, and the Amiga even more so, certain super moves were, you had to execute them by doing what's called a type of charge. Like, you'd basically push a button and need to hold that for a while, or maybe you're moving your directional D-pad or your joystick in a direction, and you'd have to hold that for a certain amount of time, and then you could react with a super move. Like, if I'm not mistaken, Guile's Sonic Boom on the Amiga required you to move back for almost exactly 2 seconds and then you could move forward and attack, and that would basically unleash a sonic boom. And I remember playing against the computer and noticing that the computer playing Guile would not always walk backwards 2 seconds before shooting a sonic boom. Heck, he would sometimes just stand still and do it, which of course seemed like it was a massive cheat on their behalf. It's like, well, what the fuck? Here I'm forced to do these inane, stupid charge things, making it much harder to build this move into my arsenal of tricks, my little bag of attacks here. And you can just do it on command. And sure enough, this if there's one fun thing to come out of the blog, at least for me, it's reading that, yes, the computer simply executed whatever commands it wanted at any time. Like, there was no delay for it. It could do whatever the heck it wanted. So yeah, I think it's interesting to read that stuff. Ah, man. Let's take some more music, and I have a few requests, but I'm not gonna play any of those until I play this next song, and I'm kind of thinking over what it should be. I feel like we played a lot of these songs I have in this list here. Don't mind me. I'm just, where are we going to change for a dollar? Nope. Tell him no. A little bit of a show reference there, and Mr. Show reference, and who was it? Someone else made a reference in the chat. Some joke. What was it? Who? Someone said, oh yes, because LP Chip said, can you play a remix of Up and Down? Is that a I Hate Everything reference, or at least that's what I would guess? And also, before I forget, Cracks Ultima says, good to hear your show again. Sorry I missed shows a lot recently. Guess it's been, it's in the middle of the day. Or, there hasn't been a show, which there hasn't for a while. So I do apologize about that. Anyway, let's take this one. Let's take Metal and Drax Remark Remix. Because, I haven't played that for a while. Let's give that a listen. Take it away. it actually surprised me that this was a different song that I thought. Metal and Drax Remark remix, I feel like I actually have heard quite a bit recently, but hey, there you go. So that was just for me, but let's play another request. And first of all, I think I may have forgotten to mention this, but I just want to once again thank Casrain and Goose75 for requesting the Roland's Rat Race from Anders Hesselbaum and XX Dusty, his Supercars 2 remix respectively. I always appreciate when people bother to write in a request. And speaking of other requests, PlanMixPlay, see what you did there, writes in and says, could we have some F4CG crack intro by the Cheesemakers or something else by them? Sorry about the poor joke in the username. Well, I do appreciate you saying that. No offense intended. I'm not sure I'm buying that statement as much. I mean, I'm sure you didn't mean any real offense, but it's one of those, it's kind of like, you know, I was trying to think of a good example of like making a bit of a crack on someone's name or something else, and to say no offense intended, maybe, but it's, you know, that usually follows a statement that is hard to not take some offense at. Not, and mind you, not enough that I really give a shit. So, you know, by all means, PlanMixPlay, or PFP, as I should probably start calling you, do keep requesting. And he does, or her, who knows, might be her, does close off the message quite positively by saying you've done well with the versions and I'm looking forward to future versions. So yeah, that is much appreciated, PFP. Look forward to future requests, hopefully. And in the hopes of course, meeting you halfway or all the way, I picked the Cheesemakers remix. This is C606, Levin's Brain Attack, because I hadn't heard that one in a while. I believe the one I keep hearing, and we all probably keep hearing, is their version of Elite. So I think let's take a different one. C606, Levin's Brain Attack. And just with that almost unceremonious hi-hat, it just all ends. Just like, done. So that was the Cheesemaker C60611's brain attack for PlanMixPlay. And the funny thing to me is that someone bothered to take the time to register with that particular name in order to request. But hey, you know, I guess the positive side on that is that you bothered to register. Anyway, moving along. We are coming up on the remaining 40 minutes of the show, and I have a few requests, but generally from people who've already requested a few things and had them played. So I am inclined to instead just play a few songs that I would like to hear. I think another thing that I can mention is I recently rewatched Jackie Brown, which is a Tarantino movie from the mid-90s, if I'm not mistaken, featuring Pam Grier in the head role. And it's, oh yeah, right, LP Chip reminds me you don't need to register a name to make a request. No, that's true, you're right. You can just put in whatever you want. So yeah, I guess that person didn't go to all that much trouble. Don't know if that makes me feel better or worse. Anyway, I watched Jackie Brown, and it's a damn good movie. I then remember Googling the name and, not surprisingly, quickly coming across an article, Top 10 Reasons Why Jackie Brown is Tarantino's Best Film Ever. I will say this, though. I think it is one of his most un-Tarantino-esque movies, in a way. It's what I would call an outlier, for sure, if you take it together with his other movies. It certainly has a feel of Tarantino on it. But there's just something about that movie. I think it's because there are some really big breaking things. Like, I think, as an example, that Robert De Niro in it plays a really kind of worn down, not too smart thug. And holy shit, does Robert De Niro, I think, do it very well. Like, he seems dumb as a doornail in that movie and really comes across it. I'll then say, after I learned, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Robert De Niro is actually an anti-vaxxer, which makes him dumb as a doornail in life as well, if you ask me. But hey, it's a different matter. But that movie, I think, is really good. Soundtrack is pretty awesome. The dialogue is also very balanced, and I'd also say that just the whole storytelling in it is superb. Learning various people's motives. It has a really killer shot in the close to the beginning as well, in a particular nasty scene, but I'd best not say any more. So guess what I'm saying is I'd highly recommend it. And Rhino joins us and immediately chimes in, says Bridget Fonda is wicked hot in that movie. Yeah, she's the surfer girl, and yeah, she looks okay. I'll be honest and say I don't know. I almost think Pam Grier looks better, but hey, that's just me. But yeah, it's a damn good movie. I would have a look at that. Anyway, I've picked another track here. It is Chris Abbott with Action Biker, vaguely reworked mix. Take it away, Chris. and with a little bit of air time dead there at the end was Chris Abbott with Action Biker, vaguely reworked mix. We're coming up on the final quarter of the show. In fact, I think I'm going to nip some of this in the bud and be like, hey, why don't we look at what's coming up? I can see Bozzy, Pumpkin, and Kate Bit have a show Wednesday evening, as per usual. I will not be back next Sunday, actually, because this weekend visitors are coming over, and me and my lovely partner, we will be entertaining said visitor, and there's not much to, there's not really anywhere to be to do the show in said time, because this is our spare room / guest room, so there isn't really much to do there except, try our best to accommodate, and I'll have to work around it, but hopefully I'll get some work done on PlanMixPlay next weekend, because I believe I'll have most of it to do the work that I need to do. Anyway, moving along, I'm going to just take another song here. Let's take Morty with Party of the Year, Bon Zax. Worthy of applause indeed, and I especially do like that ending part there, the bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop. Also, I mentioned some people have made requests who had already had one played or two, but that of course doesn't mean that I can't change my mind and do a double take, which is what I intend to do here. Crax Ultima writes in with another request and wrote, "Since you live in Aussie land, I thought of Gert's show. I thought of Gert just now, and loves this one." I presume you mean Gert does. Vert X with Jack the Nipper, nippy little bugger. Play it for him. I'll be happy to. And also, maybe someone in the chat can inform me, has Gert done a show? I think it's been quite a while since we've heard anything from Gert. Let me know in the chat. Anyway, this is Vertex with Jack the Nipper. There you have it, some Vert X with Jack the Nipper, Nippy Little Bugger, requested by Crax Ultima. So thank you very much for requesting that. And for the two people who were watching this live, and anyone who happens to watch it in, I guess, a post-live state on YouTube, you may have heard a little bit of an ad playing there at some part of the track, because I occasionally do a bit of browsing while I'm doing the show, because my attention span is, has been ruined thanks to clicker games and Snapchats and Musical.ly and all that other bullshit. And so sometimes my attention span will kind of wander a little bit, and then I happen upon a lovely, awesome website where no more than 5 seconds after you start reading this article, a video with an ad will start playing. God damn, do I hate that bullshit. I'm not a fan of ad blockers. I think ad blockers absolutely violate an implicit agreement between, content consumer and content provider. Someone has to foot a bill. I've talked about this before. I absolutely feel for the people who are producing content and want a little something in return. But there is also absolutely a line that should not be crossed. And I would say auto-playing video along with audio is absolutely one of them. Look, it's great if you live in a world where bandwidth is free and you can, do whatever you want. But not everyone does. And if you absolutely want people to watch an ad in terms of a video prior to me watching the content, or need to foist it upon me, then I would rather have a kind of a wall in between me and the content that says, hey, we're going to show you this ad first, and click if that's okay with you. Because then I can at least opt to I can opt to not do that. And yes, I have the choice of closing the tab here as well. But I don't appreciate at all that it plays with fucking sound. I hate it. Like it's like being back in fucking the beginning of the internet, mid-90s, where people had rotating at symbols on their page and a work in progress icon somewhere and fucking MIDI music automatically chiming out of your speakers. Like, this is not the 90s anymore. This is this is just a nightmare. And even worse, I think one of the few counter arguments against ads and pro ad blockers is that ads are in many ways the primary delivery vector for a lot of malware and viruses, because there's no easier way than to get your shit out than via some very funky, shady JavaScript or any other means delivered by ads. And it's cheap. Like, it's the cheapest, most affordable, and apparently most, I don't know what to say, maybe just most straightforward way of spreading a virus, if that's what you want to do. And that really sucks. But all that being said, I totally sympathize with people who have who need to make money and have a business to run. So as much as I'm in favor, but like I said, as much as I'm in favor of keeping ads around, because guess what, someone has to pay. There is no such thing as a free lunch. You don't need to be abused. So I think auto-playing ads with video and definitely with audio on top, fucking kill it with fire. I also remember, so this brings me back to maybe after I started doing the show, if you go all the way back somewhere in the archives, maybe you'll find me talking about this, but I remember one day when the Danish train system basically upgraded almost all of their wagons to have a TV in them that displayed public service announcements, as well, of course, a shit ton of ads, because guess what? That's a very lucrative opportunity for them to try and keep some of their costs down. Now, that's fair enough. Look, we've lived with having ads in almost trains no matter where we go, because look, it's where a lot of, traffic goes through, and they have eyeballs and they want to monetize that shit. Fair enough. That is what it is. And hey, in some ways, as a commuter, that can actually you can benefit from that, because if they can keep costs low, that means that your ticket can maybe not go up. But here's the deal. I believe maybe the day, or maybe not on the day, but certainly within a month of them having installed the TVs, they fucking turned them on, as in like audio. There was music and talking, and like all the ads playing on that fucking television had music coming out of it. Like it was like having an actual TV, and I'd say the volume was was loud enough that it was disturbing. Like it wasn't something where any word uttered and you would overpower the TV. No, it was certainly as in this is a TV in your living room and it's set to at least medium volume setting. And I, along with I presume what can only be hundreds if not thousands of other commuters, wrote in complaining about this. I certainly did, because I remember being quite floored. I was like, this is actively annoying me on my trip. Fucking turn it off. And I remember they did. I think it lasted about 2 days. And I wish I could say the public response from them had been less tone deaf, but it was totally one of those, we're, still working our way through this interesting space and trying out new things and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't. And we appreciate everyone contributing to this experiment. And we have decided for now that loud noise is not what you wanted. But thank you for letting us, try this out. And in the future, we hope to make it a more pleasurable, blah, 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 blah. As I know it's a PR thing, but I really wish there was a way of getting concrete numbers on this. But to someone like me, I would hold the company in higher regard if the message that they sent after, this misstep was to say, hey everyone, we experimented with running ads with noise. We didn't realize, or we hadn't considered how big of an inconvenience this would end up being. By the response, it's clear that the inconvenience is quite high. As a result, we have turned off any noise and we apologize. But I suppose that if they were to be that honest and blunt, then it would be hard to justify why you did it in the first place, because it's pretty damn obvious that your customers aren't going to like it. But then you have to sort of make up some sort of song and dance as to say, well, we're just trying out a lot of shit and see what sticks, and not admit that you were pretty aware that this was a bad idea. It's kind of better to not admit that at all for them, I suppose. I don't know. They lose a lot of respect to me, because they're not dumb. They know that this was pushing the line, and they pushed it too far. And it would behoove them, in my opinion, to acknowledge that and say, hey, guess what? We tried and we pushed a bit too hard, so we're rolling back. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, God, I remember being really pissed at that, because the public transportation in Denmark is, to begin with, not cheap, and I'm sure it would be much more expensive if there weren't ads as well. But damn. All right, I can see that this is a massive tune, so let's take that. This will probably be the next to last before the wind down. Math with Nemesis the Warlock. I wonder if I've heard that in a while, but I'll leave you with this longish tune, and then we'll come back, or I'll come back, and we'll wrap it all up and see you on the other side. So take it away, Math. Math with Nemesis the Warlock. Right. We're nearing the end of the show, and I do profusely apologize to Peter Parker 2K, who may or may not have ever requested something before. I always try, whenever I see a new name or a new listener, for good reason, of course, I do my best to try and play it, but we're simply out of time, and I have to absolutely positively shut the show down at the 2-hour mark, unfortunately. So Peter Parker 2K, please come back and request something on another show, not next weekend, but hopefully the weekend after that. Again, apologies for that, but thank you to everyone else who did do requesting today. LP Chip, Spavach, Cracks Ultima, or Mortal, Castring Goose 75, Cracks Ultima again, PlanMixPlay, and of course Peter Parker 2K. So yeah, hopefully you'll come back and be like, give it one more try. I do my best and try to get to everyone, but it doesn't always work out. So yeah, Boz has his show coming up. I really, really hope that I soon have something more to show on YouTube, because yes, it is getting rather boring. I believe this is the 6th show, maybe even 7th with this video, but look, it's all slow steps, and the cool thing, that's the good and the bad thing, when it takes a long time for me to finally pop something new out, in some ways it's because I'm reorganizing and rejiggering a lot of the underlying gadgetry tech stuff, and that kind of benefits the program on a much grander scale, as in other stuff later will be even easier to make. But of course it means that visibly very little is changing, which is unfortunate. But I am doing my best to see what I can get working ASAP, because I also very much want to move forward. Anyway, so yes, to everyone in the chat, thank you very much for joining in. I've had a great time. I hope you have as well, and I hope you have a wonderful, lovely Sunday evening. Yeah, I will leave you with some Skits and Moog with the final grooving synth sample 1. Hope to see you at the next show, and tune in for the others as well. Have a good day.